The courtroom erupted in stunned silence as Karen Martinez leaned back in her chair, with a smirk that could cut glass, pointing her perfectly manicured finger directly at Judge Judy's face. "Listen here, lady. You work for me. I'm a taxpayer, which means I'm your boss, and you will show me the respect I deserve." The words hung in the air like a bomb about to explode. This wasn't just any entitled customer having a meltdown. This was a woman who truly believed she owned America's most feared television judge. But what Karen didn't know was that hidden in Judge Judy's case files was something that would destroy her completely. Something so devastating that when it came out, Karen would beg to disappear from that courtroom forever. Before we dive into this incredible case, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing where my viewers are around the world. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss more unbelievable cases like this one. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed to slits, and for the first time in 25 years of television, viewers saw something they'd never seen before. Pure, unfiltered rage mixed with what looked almost like anticipation. As if she'd been waiting her entire career for someone exactly like Karen to walk into her courtroom. The 81-year-old legal legend slowly removed her glasses, set them down with deliberate precision, and when she looked back up, her voice dropped to a whisper that somehow felt more terrifying than any scream. "Oh, sweetheart, you have no idea what you just walked into." What happened next would become the most watched courtroom moment in television history. Because Judge Judy didn't just have a response prepared. She had a secret weapon that would expose Karen's lies, destroy her credibility, and reveal a truth so shocking that it would leave the entire courtroom gasping. This wasn't just another case about a damaged rental car. This was about to become the ultimate reality check that would prove once and for all what happens when unstoppable entitlement meets immovable authority. And the hidden bombshell Judge Judy was about to drop, it would change everything you think you know about this case. Before we dive into this absolutely legendary takedown, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, so you never miss these incredible moments when entitled people get exactly what they deserve. Trust me, what Judge Judy reveals about Karen will blow your mind, and you definitely don't want to miss the moment this case takes a turn that nobody saw coming. This is about to get more intense than anything you've ever seen on television. The case that brought Karen Martinez into Judge Judy's courtroom should have been straightforward. A simple dispute over a luxury rental car that Karen had returned 3 weeks late, completely trashed, with mysterious damage that she swore wasn't her fault. The rental company was seeking $4,000 in damages, late fees, and cleaning costs. But from the moment Karen walked through those courtroom doors, everyone could sense this wasn't going to be an ordinary case. She carried herself with the kind of aggressive confidence that comes from years of bullying customer service workers, government employees, and anyone else she believed was beneath her, stationed as a taxpayer and quote-unquote contributing member of society. What made this confrontation absolutely explosive was the perfect storm of personalities that had just collided. On one side, you had Karen Martinez, a 45-year-old real estate agent from Phoenix who had turned weaponizing her taxpayer status into an art form. She was the type of person who showed up to city council meetings with printed copies of her tax returns, who screamed at postal workers about their salaries, and who genuinely believed that anyone working in any government capacity was essentially her personal employee. Karen had built her entire identity around the twisted logic that because she paid taxes, she owned a piece of everyone who worked for the government. She'd gone viral multiple times for her public meltdowns, including a legendary incident where she tried to fire a DMV clerk for making her wait in line like everyone else. But Karen had made one critical miscalculation. She thought Judge Judy was just another government employee she could intimidate and control. What she didn't realize was that she had just walked into the domain of a woman who had spent over 4 decades in the legal system, crushing people exactly like her. Judge Judy Scheindlin wasn't just any television personality. She was a former family court judge who had presided over more than 20,000 cases in the Bronx, dealing with the worst of human behavior every single day. She had seen every con, every excuse, every manipulation tactic, and every entitled attitude that people could throw at her. The cultural significance of this moment couldn't be overstated. This was the ultimate clash between two of America's most recognizable archetypes. Karen represented everything that had gone wrong with customer service culture and entitled behavior. The woman who demanded to speak to managers, who used social media to shame minimum wage workers, who treated every interaction as an opportunity to assert her imagined authority over others. Judge Judy represented the complete opposite. She was the voice of common sense, the adult in the room, the person who refused to tolerate nonsense regardless of who was dishing it out. The timing made this confrontation even more perfect. This was happening during the peak of the Karen phenomenon, when videos of entitled behavior were dominating social media, and people were desperate for someone to finally put these bullies in their place. Judge Judy had unknowingly become America's unofficial Karen destroyer, and millions of viewers were about to witness the ultimate showdown between entitlement and accountability. What Karen didn't know was that Judge Judy had been preparing for someone like her for decades. Every entitled parent who thought their tax dollars gave them the right to abuse teachers, every aggressive customer who believed their receipt made them royalty, every person who had ever used the phrase "I pay your salary" as a weapon, had unknowingly trained Judge Judy for this exact moment. She had developed an arsenal of responses, a deep understanding of entitled psychology, and most importantly, an absolute intolerance for people who confused paying taxes with owning other human beings. The stakes couldn't have been higher. This wasn't just about $4,000 in car damages. This was about whether entitled behavior would finally meet its match. Whether someone would finally stand up to the Karen mentality that had been terrorizing service workers for years, and whether America's most beloved television judge could deliver the reality check that millions of people had been waiting to see. Karen had walked into that courtroom thinking she was about to intimidate another government employee. Instead, she had just triggered what would become the most satisfying takedown in television history. The stage was set, the cameras were rolling, and Judge Judy was about to remind everyone exactly why respect is earned, not demanded through tax receipts. To understand why this confrontation was so devastating, you need to know exactly who these two women were and what they represented in the broader landscape of American culture. Karen Martinez had perfected the art of weaponizing her taxpayer status over nearly 2 decades of terrorizing anyone she perceived as being paid by the government. Her journey into entitlement had started small, with complaints to City Hall about parking tickets and demands for special treatment at the post office. But like any addiction, her need for control and dominance had escalated over the years until she genuinely believed that her annual tax contribution of roughly $3,000 made her a shareholder in the American government with the right to boss around anyone from postal clerks to federal judges. Karen's confidence wasn't just arrogance. It was built on a foundation of success. She had gotten her way countless times by using volume, persistence, and her favorite weapon, the phrase "I pay your salary." She had gotten parking tickets dismissed by screaming at city clerks, received refunds she wasn't entitled to by intimidating customer service managers, and even managed to get a police officer to apologize to her during a traffic stop by launching into a lecture about taxpayer rights. In Karen's mind, she had discovered a cheat code for American society. Every government employee, from the president down to the person checking her ID at the courthouse, was essentially her employee, and she treated them accordingly. Her real estate career had only amplified this sense of entitlement. Karen specialized in luxury properties, dealing with wealthy clients who expected exceptional service, and somewhere along the way, she had convinced herself that she deserved that same level of deference from everyone else. She drove a white BMW SUV with a custom license plate that read Taxpayer 1, and carried business cards that listed her occupation as citizen and taxpayer underneath her real estate credentials. Karen had turned entitlement into a personal brand, complete with a social media following of people who shared her twisted view of how public service worked. But Karen's greatest weakness was her complete inability to recognize when she was outmatched. She had spent so many years bulldozing through minimum wage workers and overwhelmed government clerks that she had lost all sense of perspective about power dynamics. She genuinely believed that her taxpayer status was an invincible shield that would protect her from any consequences and give her authority over any situation. She had no idea that she was about to encounter someone who had been immunized against her particular brand of manipulation through decades of exposure to far more dangerous people. The other side of this epic confrontation sat Judge Judy Scheindlin, and she represented everything that made entitled bullies like Karen absolutely terrified when they finally met their match. Born in Brooklyn to middle-class Jewish parents, Judy had learned early that respect was earned through competence, not demanded through volume. She had clawed her way through law school at a time when women, especially women from working-class backgrounds, were actively discouraged from pursuing legal careers. She had spent 15 years in family court in the Bronx, dealing with the absolute worst of human behavior on a daily basis. Child abuse cases, custody disputes involving drug addicts, domestic violence situations where lives hung in the balance. She had seen manipulation, intimidation, and entitlement in forms that would make Karen's taxpayer tantrums look like playground squabbles. Judge Judy's television career had been built on a simple premise that resonated with millions of Americans: common sense, personal responsibility, and an absolute refusal to tolerate nonsense from anyone, regardless of their background, excuses, or sense of entitlement. She had developed an almost supernatural ability to see through lies, manipulation, and attempts to shift responsibility. More importantly, She had learned that the best way to deal with bullies was to hit back twice as hard and never show weakness. Her courtroom wasn't just a place where legal disputes were resolved. It was a place where accountability went to make its final stand against excuses and entitlement. What made Judge Judy particularly dangerous to someone like Karen was her combination of legal expertise, life experience, and complete financial independence. She couldn't be intimidated, couldn't be fired, and couldn't be controlled by anyone's threats or tantrums. She had already proven herself in the most challenging legal environment imaginable, had built a media empire worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and had absolutely nothing to prove to anyone. Karen was about to learn that her taxpayer threats meant nothing to someone who had faced down genuinely dangerous criminals and emerged victorious every single time. The hearing started deceptively normal, with the plaintiff's attorney presenting evidence of the damaged rental car. Photos showed a luxury sedan with mysterious scratches along the passenger side, a dashboard that looked like someone had spilled an entire fast food meal across it, and seats that appeared to have been treated more like storage bins than places to sit. But instead of addressing the evidence or offering any defense, Karen had clearly come into the courtroom with a completely different agenda. She spent the first 10 minutes of testimony rolling her eyes, sighing dramatically, and making notes on a legal pad that she held up conspicuously, as if she was grading Judge Judy's performance. When it came time for Karen to present her defense, she stood up with the kind of theatrical confidence that immediately put everyone on edge. Your Honor, before we discuss this ridiculous case, I think we need to establish some ground rules about how this proceeding is going to work. Judge Judy's eyebrows shot up slightly, a warning sign that everyone in the courtroom should have recognized immediately. But Karen was too intoxicated by her own sense of authority to notice the danger signals. You see, I've done my research and I know exactly how much money taxpayers like me contribute to keeping this courthouse running. Keeping the lights on and yes, keeping your salary paid every month. Karen's voice was getting louder and more condescending with each word, as if she was explaining basic math to a child. So I think it's important that we remember who's really in charge here, don't you? The courtroom fell silent in a way that felt almost supernatural. The bailiff's hand moved instinctively toward his radio. The court reporter stopped typing mid-sentence. Even the cameras seemed to zoom in automatically, sensing that something historic was about to happen. Judge Judy set down her pen with a kind of deliberate control that people use when they're trying not to explode with rage. But Karen wasn't finished with her power play. She had clearly rehearsed this moment, practiced it in front of mirrors, maybe even run it by her social media followers for approval. Your Honor, I need you to remember something very important. I'm not just another defendant in your courtroom. I'm a taxpayer, which means my tax dollars pay for this building, pay for that bailiff, pay for this whole operation, and yes, pay your salary too. The words hung in the courtroom air like smoke from an explosion. Karen leaned back in her chair with a satisfied smirk, clearly believing she had just established her dominance over the situation. That makes you my employee, Your Honor. And as your employer, I expect to be treated with the respect and courtesy that someone in my position deserves. Judge Judy's face had gone completely expressionless, which anyone who had watched her show for more than 5 minutes knew was the most dangerous sign possible. When Judge Judy went quiet, when her face became a mask, when she stopped reacting entirely, that meant she was loading the biggest weapon in her arsenal. Karen had just committed the ultimate act of courtroom suicide, and she was still smiling about it, completely oblivious to the fact that she had just triggered something that would destroy her more completely than she could have ever imagined. What happened next was a masterpiece of controlled destruction that would be studied in communication classes for decades to come. Judge Judy slowly picked up the case file in front of her, opened it with deliberate precision, and when she looked back up at Karen, her voice carried the kind of authority that comes from 4 decades of making people face reality, whether they wanted to or not. Ms. Martinez, you just made the biggest mistake of your pathetic little life, and I'm about to explain to you exactly why. The first blow was surgical and devastating. Let me educate you about something, sweetheart, since you clearly slept through civics class. I don't work for you. I work for the production company that pays me more money in 1 month than you'll see in 5 years of selling houses to people who can actually afford them. Judge Judy's voice was perfectly controlled, but everyone in the courtroom could feel the volcanic fury beneath the surface. My salary doesn't come from your precious tax dollars. It comes from advertising revenue generated by people tuning in to watch me deal with entitled brats like you. But Judge Judy was just getting warmed up. She leaned forward slightly, and Karen's confident smirk finally began to falter. However, since you brought up taxpayers and government employees, let me share something interesting I discovered when I had my staff do a little research on you before this hearing. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for, the hidden weapon. The secret that would destroy Karen completely. You see, Ms. Martinez, you love talking about being a taxpayer, But according to the IRS records that are part of your financial disclosure in this case, you paid exactly $0 in federal income tax last year. The courtroom erupted in gasps and whispers. Karen's face went white as Judge Judy continued her systematic destruction. That's right, everyone. Our self-proclaimed taxpayer extraordinaire who thinks she owns government employees actually contributed nothing to their salaries. The revelation hit Karen like a physical blow. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air, but no words came out. Judge Judy wasn't finished delivering the devastating truth. In fact, according to these documents, you haven't paid federal income tax in 3 years because your real estate business has been losing money consistently. You've been living off tax refunds and credits while lecturing other people about taxpayer rights. Karen finally found her voice, stammering desperately. That's private information. You can't. But Judge Judy cut her off with the precision of a surgeon. It became public information the moment you decided to make your taxpayer status the foundation of your defense in my courtroom. You opened that door, and now I'm going to walk right through it. The destruction continued with relentless precision. So let me get this straight, Ms. Martinez. You haven't contributed a single penny to anyone's government salary in years, but you still think you have the right to boss around judges, clerks, and anyone else who actually works for a living? You're not a taxpayer. You're a tax burden. The people you've been screaming at for the past few years have been paying your bills through the social services you've been quietly using. Karen tried one last desperate counterattack, her voice cracking with humiliation. This is harassment. I demand. But Judge Judy's response was swift and final. You demand nothing in my courtroom except the judgment I'm about to give you. And here it is. You owe the plaintiff $4,000 for the damages plus court costs, plus an additional $1,000 in sanctions for wasting everyone's time with your ridiculous taxpayer fantasy. The gavel came down with the finality of a coffin nail, and Karen Martinez's reign of entitled terror was officially over. The woman who had terrorized government employees for years had been exposed as a fraud, humiliated on national television, and left completely speechless by someone who had mastered the art of destroying bullies long before Karen had learned to spell taxpayer. If you're absolutely loving this epic destruction of Karen's entitled delusions, smash that like button right now and make sure you're subscribed, because moments like this are exactly why this channel exists. Now let's see how the internet reacted to this legendary takedown. The immediate aftermath was unlike anything daytime television had ever witnessed. Within 30 minutes of the episode airing, clips of Judge Judy's takedown were flooding every social media platform imaginable. The hashtag Judge Judy Destroys Karen hit #1 trending on Twitter faster than any courtroom moment in history. TikTok creators were already making reaction videos, with one compilation getting over 2 million views in the first hour alone. The most devastating part? Karen's own social media accounts became crime scenes of her previous entitled behavior. Internet detectives quickly found her old Facebook posts bragging about putting government employees in their place and demanding special treatment at various offices. The contrast between her online arrogance and her courtroom humiliation created a perfect storm of viral content that entertainment blogs couldn't stop covering. Even celebrities joined the celebration. Actress Niecy Nash tweeted, "Judge Judy said tax burden and I felt that in my soul," which got retweeted over 100,000 times. The moment had transcended daytime TV and become a cultural phenomenon that proved accountability could still triumph over entitlement in the most spectacular way possible. This exchange became far more than just a viral moment. It became a cultural earthquake that changed how entitled behavior was perceived and handled across America. Within weeks, the clip was being used in customer service training videos at major corporations, showing employees that they didn't have to tolerate abuse from customers who claimed taxpayer status. Government offices started printing out transcripts of Judge Judy's response and posting them in break rooms, giving workers the confidence to stand up to their own Karens. The phrase tax burden, not taxpayer, became a rallying cry for service workers who had endured years of entitled abuse. Retail managers reported a noticeable decrease in customers using the "I pay your salary" argument, as if Karen's public humiliation had finally broken the spell that entitled people thought that phrase cast. Social workers and government clerks began sharing stories of successfully shutting down similar attacks by simply asking to see the person's tax returns. Karen Martinez herself became a cautionary tale about the dangers of entitled behavior in the social media age. Her real estate business reportedly lost several clients who didn't want to be associated with someone who had been exposed as a hypocrite on national television. She attempted to rebuild her reputation through a series of apologetic social media posts, but the internet had already moved on to celebrating her downfall rather than accepting her excuses. Judge Judy's takedown proved something that millions of Americans had been waiting to see. That preparation, Facts and real authority could still triumph over volume and entitlement. It showed that bullies who built their power on intimidating service workers would crumble the moment they faced someone who couldn't be fired, couldn't be intimidated, and had access to the truth. If you absolutely loved watching Judge Judy demolish Karen's entire worldview with facts and receipts, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you never miss these incredible moments when justice is served. What did you think of Judge Judy's secret weapon reveal? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to share this with anyone who needs to see how real authority handles fake entitlement. This story proves that respect is earned through competence, not demanded through imaginary power. When you try to intimidate someone who's been destroying bullies since before you were born, you better make sure your facts are straight, because if they're not, you might just get the education of a lifetime on live television, and the whole world will be watching you learn it.